capitalist in the history of the United States of America, Elon Musk.
I'm a big believer that people are more productive when they're in person. Look, there are some exceptions, but I kind of think that the whole notion of work from home is a bit like the fake Marie Antoinette quote, "Let them eat cake." It's like really, you're going to work from home and you're going to make everyone else who made your car come work in the factory. You're going to make the people who make your food that gets delivered that they can't work from home. The people that come fix your house, they can't work from home, but you can? Does that seem morally right? That's messed up.
You see it as a moral issue?
Yes.
I mean, I see it more as
it's a productivity issue, but it's also a moral issue. People should get off the goddamn moral high horse with the work from home bullshit. Because they're asking everyone else to not work from home while they do. The laptop class is living in La La Land.
What was that trip like? And obviously, you know that there's a public perception that, and you're clarifying this now, but there's a public perception that that was part of a apology tour, if you will. That this had been said online, there was all of the criticism, there was advertisers leaving. We talked to Bob Iger today.
I hope they stop.
You hope?
Don't advertise.
You don't want them to advertise?
No.
What do you mean?
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go f yourself.
But
go f yourself. Is that clear? I hope it is. Hey, Bob, if you're in the audience.
Well, let me ask you then.
That's how I feel. Don't advertise.
How do you think then about the economics of X? If part of the underlying model, at least today, and maybe it needs to shift, maybe the answer is it needs to shift away from advertising. If you believe that this is the one part of your business where you will be beholden to those who have this view, what do you do?
Why?
I understand that, but there's a reality too, right?
Yes. No.
I mean, Linda Yaccarino's right here, and she's got to sell advertising.
Absolutely. So, totally. No. Actually, what this advertising boycott is going to do? It's going to kill the company.
And do you think that
and the whole world will know that those advertisers killed the company, and we will document it in great detail.
But those advertisers, I imagine, are going to say, we didn't kill the company.
Oh yeah.
They're going to say,
tell it to Earth.
But they're going to say, Elon, that you killed the company because you said these things, and that they were inappropriate things, and that they didn't feel comfortable on the platform, right? That's what they're going to say.
And let's see how Earth responds to that.
Okay, this goes back to
we'll both make our cases,
right?
And we'll see what the outcome is.
What are the economics of that for you? I mean, you have enormous resources, so you can actually keep this company going for a very long time. Would you keep it going for a long time if there was no advertising?
I mean, if the company fails because of an advertiser boycott, it will fail because of an advertiser boycott. And that will be what bankrupted the company, and that's what everybody on Earth will know.
What do you think then of the, again, this goes back to the idea of trust, though.
Then it'll be gone. And it'll be gone because of an advertiser boycott.
But you recognize that some of those people are going to say that they didn't feel comfortable on the platform. And I just wonder and ask you and think about that for a second.
Tell it to the judge.
But the judge is going to be...
the judge is the public.
X, from my perspective, played a pivotal role, not just in this election, but in keeping the country alive.
Yeah. Well, X is, I think, the one place where you can find out the truth.
Yes.
And
the only place.
Yeah.
So how much pressure, to the extent you can say, has there been on you to shut it down or to censor it?
Well, I mean, apart from the multiple Democrats saying that I should go, they want to put me in jail, take away all government contracts from my companies, nationalize my companies, deport me as an illegal, and have me arrested because I'm apparently Putin's best friend. Nothing besides those things.
Well, first of all, I wanted to really say that I'm very excited for the AfD, and I think you're really the best hope for Germany. I think some things that something I think that is just very important is that people take pride in Germany and being German. This is very important. It's okay to be proud to be German. This is a very important principle, and it's okay. It's good to be proud of German culture, German values, and not to lose that in some sort of multiculturalism that dilutes everything. You know, I think we want to have unique cultures in the world. We want to have people that have, we don't want everything to be the same everywhere, where it's just one big sort of soup. We want to have something where it's you go to different countries and you experience a different culture, and it is unique and special and good, and that the German government takes actions to protect its citizens and make sure that it seeks the health and well-being of the German people. The German people are sort of really an ancient nation, goes back thousands of years. I was even you should sort of read Julius Caesar's account of first encountering the German tribes in the Gaulic campaigns, and he was like, "Wow, very impressive. These are very, very powerful warriors." I think there's frankly too much of a focus on past guilt, and we need to move beyond that. Children should not be guilty of the sins of their parents, or even let alone their parents, their great grandparents, maybe even. And you should be optimistic and excited about a future for Germany. That's really my message, is be optimistic, excited, and preserve German culture and protect the German people. And, and there's some other things that I think would be very helpful too, which is I think you want more self-determination for Germany and for the countries in Europe, and less from Brussels. That's my opinion. I think there's too much bureaucracy from Brussels, too much control from sort of global elite. And, when I've given talks at these sort of global government conferences, what I've said is there should be less global government. There should be more determination by individual countries. So I very much hope that the AfD does well, and that Alice Beadle does become chancellor. I think that would be very good for Germany, and I think it's very important. I hope that German people unite and strongly support AfD. Go! So you're doing the right thing, is what I'm saying. Let's go, guys. Let's go. Fight for a great future for Germany. Fight for a great future for Germany. Go, go, go. Convince your friends. Convince everyone. Let's go. Yay. Be excited about the future. And if you want to make the future great, if you want the future to be great, you need to make it great and fight for the future to be great. That's how it becomes great. Let's exactly. I think we should fight for an exciting, bright future where people can be optimistic about what's going to happen, where you wake up and you look forward to the future. And the best way to ensure the future is good, you have to fight for a good future every day, and it will be great, and we'll have a very exciting, wonderful future. So, so I think this election coming up in Germany is incredibly important. I think it could decide the entire fate of Europe, maybe the fate of the world. That is the significance of this election. So that's why it's very important to talk to your friends and family and convince them to consider voting for AfD, and just go with it like a chain reaction. Convince one friend, talk to another friend, and say, hey guys, do you want this? Do you want more of the last 10 years, or do you want something different? And I think the people in Germany want something different. And if you want something different, you have to vote for a different party. This is just a fact. This is logic. So.
Yes.
So you are the future of Germany. Make it happen. But I can't emphasize enough. Go out there, talk to people, convince people, one vote at a time. There's a need for change. It's got to be done. And this election is so important. It's extremely important. I do not say it lightly when I think the future of civilization could hang on this election. So when something is so important, you really need to say, okay, you got to go all out to convince people to vote for AfD. Obviously, you have my full support. You have this, I think this, the Trump administration is also supportive. So, I think the policies that I've heard from AfD, they make a lot of sense. They're really just, to me, when I look at the policies of AfD, they're common sense policies. And just like President Trump has common sense policies, getting things done, getting the government out of people's way so that you can get things done, and giving people back personal freedom, and protecting the people from dangers. These are fundamental things that, frankly, the current government is not doing. Current government is suppressing speech very aggressively, and really, when you suppress freedom of speech, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to have a true democracy, because freedom of speech is the foundation of democracy. People cannot be expected to vote in an informed manner if they are not able to know the truth. So this is why it is so important to have freedom of speech, so people can make an informed vote and it can be a true democracy. But this is not what the current government has been doing. They have been suppressing freedom of speech and putting people in jail for even mild criticisms of politicians or social media posts. This is crazy. This is frankly a totalitarian approach. It is not a democratic approach. So there needs to be, we need to restore freedom to the people of Germany, and have freedom of speech, and have less government oppression in general. So anyway, I think this is, I can't emphasize enough. Go do everything you can, full blast. Put every effort you can into this election. The fate of the world, I think, rests upon this election in Germany. It's extremely fundamental. Everything you can, please go all out. Thank you. You can see the enthusiasm of the crowd, and once again, go, go, go. Fight, fight, fight.
Fight, fight, fight.
All right, bye.
Fight, fight.
I want to say thank you for making it happen. Thank you. My heart goes out to you. It is thanks to you that the future of civilization is assured.
People have called you the real Tony Stark. Okay, you've got your finger in so many different advanced technologies. As I said, SpaceX, Tesla, now you've got Solar City and the solar pack that people put in their houses. Are you sincerely trying to save the world?
Well, I'm trying to do good things, yeah. I mean, saving the world is not I mean...
But you're trying to do good things and you're a billionaire. I mean...
Yeah.
That seems a little bit like either superhero or supervillain. You have to choose one.
I'm trying to do useful things. I mean...
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the Tesla. I have a Tesla.
Yeah.
Okay, and I love it. I love it. You've got a new thing that you think is people are going to want for their Tesla. Jim, can we show the footage of this? I think it's called, this thing is the power arm. That is an extremely
It's our snake bot charger.
It's a snake charger that automatically plugs into your car when you get home.
This looks a little wrong, you know.
That really looks like the thing that jacks into the back of Neo's head in The Matrix.
Right.
All right, is that thing going to attack me in my sleep?
Well, I wouldn't, for the prototype at least, I would recommend not dropping anything when you're near it.
Okay, all right. Now, another thing that you are talking about is you sincerely think that we should go to Mars, like that men and women should go to Mars.
Yeah.
Why do we want to go to Mars? It's uninhabitable.
It's very inhospitable, that's true.
It is. Like, you have to be in, like, domes and everything, and you're just breathing.
Initially domes.
Initially?
Yes.
Really? How long before we could turn Mars into someplace where we could live?
It is a fixer-upper of a planet. At first, you're going to have to live in transparent domes, but eventually...
Yes, we're going to be huffing each other's stank.
Yeah, but eventually you can transform Mars into an Earth-like planet.
How would you do that?
You'd warm it up. Just warm it up. If you
with
want,
a blanket or with what? How would you warm Mars up? You know, it's a long way away from the sun.
There's the fast way and the slow way.
Okay. Give me the fast way.
The fast way is drop thermonuclear weapons over the poles.
You're a supervillain. That's what a supervillain does.
Yeah.
If he loses, man, what?
It does seem that way. You can't just be like,
Yeah,
I'm like, how long do you think my prison sentence is going to be? Do you think? Will I see my children? I don't know.
Because it's not like you can say, well, yeah, I maxed out to him, but, you know, I have
no plausible deniability. No, and I've been trashing Kamala nonstop.
Oh, I know.
Well, the Kamala puppet, I call her, you know. The machine that the Kamala puppet represents.
Yeah, she's irrelevant. I mean, she's not even.
No. I made a joke which I realized I deleted, which is like nobody's even bothering to try to kill Kamala because it's pointless. What do you achieve? Nothing.
No, it's totally
Just find
right.
another puppet.
Exactly. That's.
It's no point.
You actually put that up?
Yeah. Now, some people interpreted it as though I was calling for people to assassinate her, but I was like, no, even I was like, doesn't it seem strange that no one's even bothered to try?
It's not worth it.
I mean,
there's an endless supply.
Yeah, like nobody would. It's absurd.
It could be anybody.
Yeah. Nobody's gonna try to. Nobody tries to assassinate a puppet.
Of course not. A marionette.
Yeah, marionette. It's just like.
It's hilarious.
Yeah. What? She's safe. Like, I like to try to kill Trump twice with actual guns and bullets. He shot in the air right in fucking Butler where I was, and
he doesn't seem rattled. It's weird. Does he to you?
Doesn't seem what?
Rattled.
He's the constitution of an ox. It seems. It's not like working out and eating healthy.
Do you respect Putin?
I do respect him.
Do you? Why?
Well, I respect a lot of people, but that doesn't mean I'm going to get along with him. He's a leader of his country. I say it's better to get along with Russia than not. And if Russia helps us in the fight against ISIS, which is a major fight, and Islamic terrorism all over the world.
Right.
Major fight, that's a good thing. Will I get along with him? I have no idea. It's very
He's a
possible
killer,
I
though.
won't.
Putin's a killer.
A lot of killers. We got a lot of killers. Why, you think our country's so innocent?
Even Republicans are perplexed, and some of them condemn those comments. Why do you think the president continues to praise Putin?
I think that I know this stirs up a lot of intrigue for people about Trump and Russia because we've heard this throughout the campaign. If you look back at the last several years, if you go back, frankly, to 1990, a Playboy interview that Donald Trump gave then as a businessman 3 years after putting out The Art of the Deal, his first book, he has sort of consistently had words that are just purely strength weakness. That is how he views the lens through which he views the world. And he had this history in the campaign of praising people who are typically described as strongmen or dictators. He described Saddam Hussein as, a bad person, but he also was really good at killing terrorists, according to Trump. In fact, Hussein was against jihadists, but he also was considered a state sponsor of terrorism against Israel. He said that things were better with Gaddafi in charge. He was sort of impressed with Kim Jong-un in terms of his rise to power. So this happened over and over again, and he praised the Chinese for the Tiananmen Square massacre in terms of showing strength.
These are all authoritarian figures.
Right, and so this is consistent, and also what you have seen with him in terms of his sort of personal criticism or delegitimizing criticism of a federal judge in the last couple of days, Judge Robart, in this executive order decision. Trump has consistently criticized judges. He has been involved in many, many lawsuits. I think that what you are seeing is somebody who has not necessarily, the presidency has not changed Trump so far. It might change him at some point, but so far we are very much seeing the same person he has been for a very long time. And I agree with David that I think that there are a lot of people who, when they see him and interact with him socially, they find him charming.
Yeah. He is. He's fantastic. This guy right here is great. Standing up in there in the mucky swamp. Diane always has him in the mucky swamp. Yeah. But it's a
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before we begin, I would like to let the committee and everyone watching at home that parental discretion is advised. I would also like to remind everyone that on our Oversight Committee, we provide oversight into all parts of the federal government, including their Department of Justice and their willingness to prosecute and their unwillingness to prosecute, and whether it's politically motivated. I would also like to say that when evidence and proof of a crime is presented, no prosecution should be denied, no matter who the person is. To the whistleblowers today, I thank both of you for your courage to come to the committee today and your commitment to truth. I have great respect for it, so thank you. I would like to talk with you both about Hunter Biden and his tax write-offs with his law firm, Owasco. I would like to ask Mr. Ziegler, when did you start your investigation? In your testimony, it was November 2018. Is that correct? Yes or no?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. During your testimony with the House Ways and Means Committee, you stated that through bank records, you identified Hunter Biden was paying prostitutes related to a potential prostitution ring. Is that correct? Yes or no?
Yes, that's correct.
I've also reviewed those same bank reports, commonly referred to as SARS, Suspicious Activity Reports, and I'm very troubled by them. We read thousands of them in the Treasury. This particular excerpt from a SARS report talks about human trafficking and in regards to Hunter Biden and Owasco and payments he was making. What's even more troubling to me is that the Department of Justice has brought no charges against Hunter Biden that will vindicate the rights of these women who are clearly victims under the law. I would like to talk about in your prior testimony, you stated that the prosecutorial team was investigating violations of the Mann Act. Is that correct, Mr. Ziegler?
That is correct.
Regarding the Mann Act, if a person is transported across state lines for sexual activity, such as prostitution, that could be a violation of a federal law. Is that correct?
I actually recently looked at the federal law regarding Mann Act, and I believe that that is correct, but I would refer you to the DOJ manual.
Thank you. I would like to present this to the committee. This is showing Hunter Biden paying for a victim's United flight from LA to Dulles. I believe this is a violation of the Mann Act. This is Hunter Biden's, this is his proof that he bought the ticket. He bought it for this woman right here. He flew her from Los Angeles to Washington on June 14th, flew her back to Los Angeles, California on June 15th of 2018. And I would like to point out that if he was purchasing her a plane ticket for sex and traveling across state lines, do you believe that to be a violation of the Mann Act, Mr. Ziegler?
So I can talk to specifically what's in my transcript regarding the Mann Act. So I know we were compiling the information together.
Yes, but Mr. Ziegler, as the law states, by the code of the law, it states traveling, paying someone to go across state lines is prostitution. It's a violation of the Mann Act. Let me just move on just one more second here. So when Hunter Biden paid for this woman to do this with him, to travel across state lines from California to Washington, D.C. on June 15th, this is a violation of the Mann Act. This was prostitution. Let me continue. Did Hunter Biden also use his company, Owasco PC, to pay prostitutes?
Can you hold on one second?
Chairman?
Yeah, we'll give you this additional time back.
Thank you.
That was.
So regarding Mann Act violations, what we can do is, given by the statute, we can turn those over to the House Ways and Means Committee, and then we can they can decide to vote to turn them over to you regarding Mann Act.
Thank you, Mr. Ziegler. So talking about Hunter Biden using his company, Owasco PC, to pay prostitutes, this is also a suspicious activity report showing that victim one, the woman that was paid for prostitution, that traveled from California to Washington, D.C., paid for by Hunter Biden. This is an excerpt from a SARS report that we've read in the Treasury, and I think you all have looked at these too, showing that victim one was supposedly an employee of Owasco. But I would like to point out, this is not really what most paralegals do for law firms. And it's very serious that Hunter Biden was paying this woman through his law firm and then writing it off as business tax exemptions. Most people write off, write off things for their taxes through their businesses, like a meal or say office supplies. But can you confirm for me that Hunter Biden had written off payments to prostitutes through his law firm, Owasco?
I appreciate the question given by the statute. I'm limited in my testimony today, and I respectfully would need to turn those records over to the House Ways and Means Committee.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ziegler. One last question. You referred to one of the assistants as West Coast assistant. I believe this is the West Coast assistant. Could you agree with that?
So I can tell you that there were deductions for what we believe to be escorts, and then that $10,000 golf club membership. Yes, that was not a golf club membership. That was for a sex club payment.
That was for a sex club payment. Payments such as this from Hunter Biden to prostitutes. Also, Mr. Shapley.
Come on.
Mr. Chairman, we're at 1 minute and 53 seconds over. As long as Ms. Ocasio-Cortez can get equal time, she can keep going.
I will let Ms. Green wrap up 5 seconds, and then I'll give Mr. Mafume additional time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Shapley, you started an investigation into Hunter Biden, codenamed Sportsman, which opened in November of 2018. It was an offshoot of an investigation the IRS was conducting into a foreign-based amateur online pornography platform. This is evidence of Hunter Biden making sex. Excuse me, this is my time. Making pornography.
Should we be displaying this, Mr. Chairman, in the committee?
Gentle lady's time has expired and went 2.5 minutes over. If Mr. Mafume wants the 2.5 minutes, he can have it. If he wants to yield some to Ms. Ocasio-Cortez when she goes, she can have it. We'll make it right. 2.5 minutes. You all have an extra 2.5 minutes. Chair recognizes Mr. Mafume for 5.
I see no other.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As acting ranking member,
don't let it go to your head.
I love the power. I didn't know what it felt like to be a.
It's an amazing thing.
To have, it is. It's better than sex. I don't know. Not really. Let me try to put all this in context for you. I like omelets. I mean, I really like omelets. I could eat an omelet at every meal. I like omelets better than sex. Not really, but you get the point. I like omelets. You have more sympathy for the criminal than the victim, don't you?
Senator, I worked on behalf of victims of crime zealously as a prosecutor. As a judge, I listened carefully to understand impact on victims, and I have always take that into account.
Do you know Micah Smith?
Michael Smith, Senator?
Micah, M-I-C-H.
I don't believe I know a Micah Smith, Senator, no.
Okay. I bet the victims of Micah Smith remember Micah Smith if you don't.
Senator, there was a defendant I sentenced named Michael Smith.
Mr. Smith molested a 4-year-old girl, didn't he?
Senator, he was convicted after trial of unlawful sexual contact under Maine law.
That's a nice way of putting it.
That was the charge, Senator.
Right. Mr. Smith molested a 9-year-old girl, didn't he?
Senator, again, he was convicted of unlawful sexual contact against 2 children. In that case, I did impose the sentence the state requested.
At oral argument, this is how Mr. Smith's conduct was described. Quote, you heard this testimony. All of the abuse is done in the same fashion. Smith would rub his fingers in a circular motion on the vagina of each child, and he did so repeatedly. Now, where I come from, we call that sexual abuse. You can pretty it up all you want to, Judge. This is what you said at Mr. Micah's sentencing. These are your words, not mine. What I can say, you said, is that this is a very tragic situation of a person who has a lot of good in him. A lot of good in him. Having done a very reprehensible thing to 2 young children causing extreme damage. Did I read that correctly?
Senator, in that case, I imposed the sentence the state requested.
Did I read that, your quotation, correctly?
Senator, that I think is a portion of what I said at sentencing. My focus was on...
But the words I read, are they correct?
That's what was reported in the paper, Senator. I have not seen a transcript of the sentencing.
I bet the victims remember, Judge. You might have forgotten, just like you forgot his name, but I bet the victims remember. And then you handed down a sentence. You gave Mr. Smith 12 years, but you suspended 6 of them, didn't you?
Senator, that was at the recommendation of the state because
but it was your ruling. Did you? Is that an accurate statement of your ruling?
Senator, I accepted the state's recommendation that 6 years should be suspended so that Mr. Smith would be required to participate in sex offender treatment.
I appreciate the lengthy explanation, but I think it's a pretty simple question. That was your sentence, right?
Yes, I imposed the sentence the state requested in that case.
Are you familiar with the Bangor Daily News?
I am the Bangor Daily News, Senator.
Right. Did you read the article they wrote, quote, light sentences send a message that domestic violence does not matter, end quote. You remember that article?
I have read it, Senator. I believe it mischaracterizes a case that is
That was article was about you, wasn't it?
My recollection, Senator, is that it described several different cases. The case that I worked on that was described there, the defendant in that case was acquitted by a jury of the most serious conduct, and that was not reflected in that article. And so
the newspaper got it wrong.
that was an op-ed that I believe misunderstood what happened, which is the jury acquitted the defendant of the most serious conduct that he was charged with. I was not the fact finder in that case, and so at sentencing I was bound by the jury's verdict.
Let me ask you, I'm going to run out of time here. I wish I had more time for you, Ms. Campbell, but I've seen a lot of activist judges, and I'm not saying you're the most activist, but the list you're on, it sure doesn't take long to call the roll. Let me finish with this question. I'm going to end as I began, Judge Lopez. You have more sympathy for criminals than victims, don't you?
Senator, I have the support of the Maine Coalition to End Domestic Violence and the Maine Coalition Against Sexual Assault. I believe that support is a reflection of the work I did as a prosecutor, as well as the care I take with cases involving victims as a judge.
You're embarrassed to answer my question, aren't you?
Thank you to the nominees for being here. I'm sorry that I was unable to preside, but in the capable hands of my colleague, Peter Welch. Judge Lopez, Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to all of our witnesses here today. Ms. Robinson, I want to follow up by trying to understand your answer to one of Senator Cruz's questions, and this is really a question, not a suggestion. Do I understand your position to be that there are two sexes, but there can be more than two genders?
I wouldn't even say two, and we've got Dr. Lopez here as well, but there's also the definition of intersex. I think that often in these conversations we're conflating sex and gender, and I do want to affirm here that trans women are women. That is their gender.
Okay, but I'm trying to understand, do you make a distinction between sex and gender?
Yes, sir.
Okay, explain that. Do you think there are more than two sexes?
I believe that there's a definition for intersex as well that I want to acknowledge. But sex is assigned at birth.
I'm just trying to understand. I'm thoroughly confused. So you're born, I'm talking about biology, male, female, and what else?
I believe that intersex is also acknowledged, but again, I'm not a doctor here. What I can
say what does intersex mean?
Is that there's a difference between sex and gender, and I think in these conversations we're conflating the two.
Well, but I want to start with sex. Okay, there's male, there's female. When a baby's born, before the baby has had time to even have a sense of self, there's male, female, and intersex. There's a third.
I believe that is true, but I would defer to Dr. Lopez as I'm not a physician.
Okay. And how many genders are there?
I think the gender is expansive, and the definitions are always growing. Today I can tell you, I talk to young people that talk about non-binary as...
More than 5?
I think the gender is not a binary, is what I'm trying to say.
Are there more than 5 genders? I'm just trying to understand. Are there more than 5 genders?
Well, I think that there was a time where women wearing pants didn't feel like it was appropriate for their gender, and yet I'm wearing pants today. I think that there are ways that we express our gender that are expansive.
Are there more than 5?
I wouldn't subject myself to naming how many genders there are, but what I can say is that gender is a reflection.
Number?
Excuse me?
There's an infinite number of genders?
I think depending on your culture, there are a lot of different genders that exist. And I can also say that it's a term that's evolving. If you look at young people today, they really don't lean into the binary of only woman and man. So I think that it's incumbent upon us not to legislate on this, but create space for them to explore what their identities are, what their gender identities are.
Let's get back to athletics. I think I understand what you're saying. There are 3 sexes, male, female, and intersex.
I believe that to be true, but again, I'm not a physician.
And there are an infinite number of genders, because gender is a mental state.
Gender is about expression, and I think that there are a variety of ways that you can express your gender.
Okay, so there's infinite number. All right, let's go back to the biology. male, female, boy, girl, okay? Biologically, do males have an advantage over females biologically in sports?
Again, I'm not a physician and I can't speak to that.
What's your real world experience?
It depends. I mean, there are some people who are born male that I'm faster than if I were to sprint against them, and some that I'm not. Some males that are taller than some women, and some that are shorter.
You don't believe that a biological male has a physical advantage in sports over a biological female?
Not as a definitive statement.
Give me an example. Well, no, I don't think. How many female members of the NBA do you see?
Well, I can say that, there's been this news article about men that think that they could beat Serena Williams in tennis, right? That they think that they could actually score a point on her. And it's just not the case. She is stronger than that.
What's your experience, Ben? Male, female?
Both Serena and Venus lost to the 203rd ranked male tennis player, which they're phenoms for women. My experience, my husband, he swam at University of Kentucky as well. In terms of accolades and in terms of national ranking, I was a much better swimmer than him. He could kick my butt any day of the week without trying.
Okay. I just think, Ms. Robinson, I'm trying to understand where you're coming from. I think you lose a lot of credibility when you don't concede that a biological male has physical advantages over a biological female. I mean, I just think that's a proven fact, and you really hurt your credibility. I understand you want the world to be a better place. I do too, and I don't think people ought to be discriminated against because of an immutable characteristic. I don't. And I think that I think everybody ought to be free to be themselves. And what you do in your bedroom or what I do in my bedroom with a consenting adult is nobody's business. But if what I do in my bedroom with a consenting adult, if I decide I want to tell somebody's child about it, then other people have rights too. And I think parents have rights. And I think biological females have rights to be able to compete fairly in sport, in sports. So I really think you hurt your credibility when you refuse to acknowledge that biological males have an advantage over biological females. It kind of makes me wonder about all your testimony. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
What I'm trying to say is that there is not a definitive advantage in all cases. Sir, I don't know if you believe that you could beat Serena Williams in tennis, but I probably think that that's not the case. There are not all cases where all men are physically superior to all women. And at the end of the day, in this conversation, we're not talking about that. We're talking about trans women who are, in fact, women, who deserve to play in a gender that matches their sports, who deserve all the benefits that Ms. Gaines is talking about. And as a cisgender black woman, I can say definitively that my womanhood is not threatened by a transgender person asserting hers as well.
You said that you're a trans woman.
I trans female, yes, ma'am, sir.
Do you have a penis?
That's horrible.
You're the one that brought that into the discussion.
I never said anything about genitalia.
Oh, it has everything to do with genitalia.
I don't know what my rights are right now.
Audience, if you want to stay in here.
I don't know what my rights are, but that question was highly inappropriate.
You do not have to answer any question. If you're through, we'll dismiss you.
Well, I'm not through with questions, but I'm not going to answer that question. That's.
I'm wondering if you have any concerns about the fact that it was the president who was implicated in 2 crimes from 2016 involving these payments to women to hide these affairs. Are you concerned about what the federal government is alleging here?
Well, I think the Democrats will do anything to hurt this president, anything. And what happened before he was elected president, is one thing. But since he's been elected, the economy's done well. Our country's moving ahead. We're in better shape than we were before he became president. And I think we ought to judge him on that basis.
But this is not the Democrats, this is the Southern District of New York, the U.S. Attorney. I mean, that's what's making this allegation.
Do you think he's a Republican, do you?
Well, he's appointed by the president. He's appointed by the president.
Okay, but I don't care. All I can say is he's doing a good job as president.
It doesn't bother you, these crimes that he allegedly was involved in, the president? That doesn't bother you?
No, because I don't think he was involved in crimes. But even then, you know, you can make anything a crime under the current laws. If you want to, you can blow it way out of proportion. You can do a lot of things. All I can say is this. President Trump, before he became president, that's another world. Since he's become president, this economy has charged ahead. We're all better off. The country's better off. And he's done a whale of a job. And I think we ought to judge him on that basis rather than trying to drum up things from the past that may or may not be true.
So you don't think that, I mean, shouldn't he, he's a president, shouldn't he be following the laws, though?
Well, you're talking about things that happened before he became president, too. So, yeah, he should be following the law. We all ought to. On the other hand, when you run for president, no matter what you do, they'll claim you're not following the law. So, you know, I've seen that when Democrats are president. I've seen it when Republicans are president. I think we ought to get to where we support our presidents and when they're right and quit trying to destroy them just for political reasons.
The House Ethics Committee now investigating Congressman Matt Gaetz over sexual misconduct allegations, and fellow Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger is calling on Gaetz to resign. The Department of Justice investigating Gaetz' trips to the Bahamas with women, particularly whether those women were paid to travel for sex. Now, Gaetz has denied all allegations, and he says he has never paid for sex. So will any other Republicans join in calling for Gaetz' resignation? NBC News national political reporter Sahil Kapoor has the latest from Capitol Hill.
Hey, Allison. Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida faces new calls for resignation among Republicans as he is in the midst of an investigation involving child sex trafficking. The latest call comes from Congressman Adam Kinzinger, an Illinois Republican who says Matt Gaetz should resign. Other Republicans have not yet come out in favor of that position, and House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy has said the allegations against Gaetz are serious and that he intends to sit down and talk to him. Now, the big question is whether Kinzinger is a canary in the coal mine or whether he is kind of an odd man out here. Important to note, Kinzinger was the first Republican to also call for the impeachment of former President Trump several months ago, and that ended up being a minority position among House Republicans. Just 10 of them ultimately voted in favor of impeaching the president. At the same time, Gaetz seems to continue to hold his standing as a close ally of the former president, who remains influential in the party. Just 2 days ago, Donald Trump put out a statement saying that Gaetz totally denies the allegations facing him, which is part of a pattern for the former president in taking the word and the denials of allies of his who are facing serious charges or criticisms. Gaetz is also expected to headline a dinner for a pro-Trump group on Friday, which indicates his continued influence and his continued support from the Trump wing of the party. Allison?
If Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her. You know?
Stop it! Oh, it's so weird. Stop
You know
it.
what? You are sick.
I know, isn't that terrible?
Yeah.
How
Well, you're
terrible.
known for saying
Is that
outrageous
terrible?
things,
Just
Mr.
like
Trump.
Who are you, Woody Allen?
He is. He's fantastic. This guy right here is great. Standing up in there in the mucky swamp. Diane always has him in the mucky swamp. Yeah. But it's amazing.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to sound the alarm that our democratic values and the rule of law are under attack. We all must open our eyes before we find ourselves in Vladimir Putin's Russia. In just 100 days, President Trump has engaged in a coordinated, premeditated, deliberate attempt to dismantle our government. Let's be very clear. Donald Trump does not seek to lead us. He seeks to rule us. And we all must open our eyes. Since he first came into office, President Trump has persistently attacked the media to undermine the credibility of the messenger of news that he didn't like. And then, during the special counsel Mueller's investigation on Russia's interference in the 2016 election to benefit Donald Trump's campaign, President Trump attacked the FBI relentlessly, trying to undermine its credibility. Rather than debate the facts or the evidence, which he knows he would lose, isn't it just a lot easier to simply shoot the messenger and claim that everything bad about you is just fake news? Now, while many have correctly been focusing on the arbitrary and devastating cuts to essential federal programs or the disastrous and reckless tariffs that have increased prices and inflation and have tanked the economy, President Trump's first 100 days have also escalated this relentless assault on the checks and balances that have been the foundation of our great nation. On day one, he pardoned more than 1,500 convicted criminals who stormed this very building on January 6th. Hundreds of them were convicted for violently assaulting law enforcement officers. Blatant and disgusting disregard for the rule of law and for our fine men and women in uniform. Next, during his first week, he fired nearly 20 inspectors general, the independent watchdogs in the executive branch agencies whose responsibility is to ensure that those agencies follow the law. Then he went after the Department of Justice and the FBI, firing prosecutors and special agents who investigated his criminal conduct, who simply did their job, before turning to the public integrity section, the renowned, venerable institution that was created after Watergate to be an independent investigative body of public officials. He and his administration have also been firing and forcing out anyone who might not share his political views, even though these jobs are career, nonpartisan, apolitical jobs. Next, he went after lawyers and law firms who have tried to hold him accountable to the law, and he continues to do so. He has signed several executive orders trying to limit the ability of law firms to represent their clients, one of the fundamental hallmarks of our system of laws. He's gone after universities, institutions that form the bedrock foundation of the growth and innovation of our great country and that underpin and form the foundation for the best global economy in the world. Threatening now to withhold billions of dollars in federal funding unless universities change their curriculum, change their admissions process, change their hiring process, and change other core parts of their mission that they decide as educational institutions in this democracy. He's also waging a war against nonprofit organizations, yanking grants away that have already been made and allocated, and threatening to remove the tax-exempt status of any organization that may disagree with his opinions or support lawsuits that might actually enforce existing laws. You see where this is going? The media, the FBI, inspectors general, the Department of Justice, law firms, universities, nonprofit organizations, all institutions that enforce our laws, that hold those in power accountable. This is his methodical way of undermining all forms of accountability in this government. But more recently, his attack on this Constitution has escalated. Now, of course, before he even came into office in January, President Trump had completely submitted the Republican conference of this body. They have abdicated their constitutional duty to be a check and balance on the executive branch. But the judiciary, the third branch of government, still remains in his way. So how does he deal with the judiciary? Well, he is openly and brazenly criticizing and attacking judicial rulings that he doesn't like, including a number issued by Republican-appointed judges, including his own. And now he is openly defying court orders, including Supreme Court orders. He, President, and some of my Republican colleagues are threatening judges, trying to bully them into ruling in their favor, not ruling based on their interpretation of the law. And now, with the career folks removed from our executive branch agencies, he has put in political lackeys to be in charge of our criminal justice system, our national security apparatus. And he is ordering investigations, criminal investigations, into individuals simply because they disagreed with him. That is the type of corruption that our country travels the world to root out, because it is at bottom as anti-democratic as it gets. It is the stuff of dictators and strongmen, not of democracies. And even worse now, he is attacking our basic and fundamental rights of due process. The right to have any allegation presented before a neutral arbiter who makes a final decision. Like a king, Donald Trump thinks it's okay for him to get to decide what the law is. But that is not how our system works. The Supreme Court and our judiciary decide what the law is. So when they do that, a unanimous Supreme Court ruled that he is not a king and that he must abide by our basic principles of due process. He then refuses, admitting a mistake. Kilmar Abrego Garcia deported to El Salvador, even though he had an order on him that would prohibit him from going to El Salvador. Admits the mistake and refuses to bring him back to face due process. Due process is the cornerstone of our country. It distinguishes us from an authoritarian dictatorship, and Donald Trump wants to destroy it. But it's not optional. And court rulings are not simply suggestions. They are the backbone of American democracy, our final safeguard against the unchecked power of the executive. When a president ignores the courts, he is not challenging policy. He is declaring war on the Constitution itself. And yet, despite this laundry list of attacks on trying to undermine our democracy, our rule of law, my Republican colleagues remain absolutely silent. In some cases, even supportive. These alarm bells are deafening, but too many in this chamber would rather enable Donald Trump's descent into dictatorship than to confront him. They have laid down the power of the purse, and now they are actively trying to forfeit their oversight authority. They are silent as President Trump wages an all-out assault on our constitutional democracy. They are silent as he goes after the media, launches investigations into his political adversaries, attacks our basic fundamental rights. This is what dictators like Vladimir Putin do. They use repression, retaliation, and the threat of violence to consolidate their own power, while doling out billions of dollars to other oligarchs who will support them. Many countries have faced moments like this before, moments where the freedom and the openness of the democracy that they represent stand at a crossroads. I urge my Republican colleagues, please stand up for our Constitution, stand up for our democracy. None of us want authoritarianism. We don't want a dictator. But now is the time when the rubber hits the road and you will make your record for history. Do you want a dictator or do you want a democracy?
Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. I want to show you tonight some video from earlier today that embodies the priorities of the party of Donald Trump just 3 weeks before Election Day in the midst of a pandemic that is now entering its third wave. That is Utah Republican Senator Mike Lee speaking in person in the room at the Supreme Court confirmation hearing for conservative judge Amy Coney Barrett today. As you can see, Senator Mike Lee, though speaking, is not wearing a mask. And you may recall the senator from such events as this one. That would be the White House Rose Garden event on September 26th that Dr. Anthony Fauci described as a super spreader event for Amy Coney Barrett, where Senator Lee was seen hugging people. And here's Lee maskless 3 days later with Judge Barrett. He is one of at least 12 people who were at that super spreader event who were then subsequently diagnosed with COVID. And while he wasn't hospitalized, he has had and maybe still has a pretty serious case by his own admission.
I had fatigue. I had some fevers. Sometimes I felt like it might feel to be 98 years old and in a boxing match.
Now, Mike Lee is not fully out of the woods. His doctor today released a letter that acknowledged that while Lee is improving, he is basically still experiencing symptoms, self-reported. And yet, there he was in the hearing room today, speaking without a mask, so committed to ramming through a justice, to giving Trump and conservatives a 6-3 majority on the court for a generation so they can do things like, I don't know, maybe take away Americans' health care. So committed to that project that even though he might have contracted the illness at the last big event for this justice, even though he is still experiencing symptoms, he rushed back into that room to breathe all over his colleagues. He could have done it on Zoom. I mean, we've all spent 7 months working remotely, but no. Why? Well, because they just don't seem to care how many people get sick and how many people die, so long as they can push their justice through. Kamala Harris, who chose to attend the hearing via video conferencing, smart call, told committee members that what they were doing was completely irresponsible.
This hearing has brought together more than 50 people to sit inside of a closed-door room for hours while our nation is facing a deadly airborne virus. This committee has ignored common sense requests to keep people safe, including not requiring testing for all members, despite a coronavirus outbreak among senators of this very committee.
She's right. Senator Lindsey Graham, you may recall, chairs the committee in a tough re-election battle in South Carolina against Jamie Harrison. He's been in contact with COVID-positive senators and has refused to get a COVID test, apparently for fear, oh my word, he might test positive and then not be able to ram through the judge before Election Day. Neither would another committee member get tested, Senator Chuck Grassley. Look at this. There's Mike Lee and Lindsey Graham before they took their masks off, standing directly above the 87-year-old Grassley this morning and chatting. Let's hope those masks were on tight. Now, Donald Trump's party wants to ram through this judge, and cement the majority for a generation, no matter who gets sick, whether in their own circle or in America at large. They will do whatever it takes, and they get prickly and petulant when you try to get them to be just a little bit responsible on even the most minor things. No one has worked closer with the president while he was shedding viral load as Chief of Staff Mark Meadows has. And this morning, Meadows lost his cool when reporters on Capitol Hill had the nerve to suggest he maybe wear a mask while speaking to them.
I tell you what, let me do this. Let me pull this away.
Yep, pull away.
And then that way I can take this off the top. Well, I'm more than 10 feet away. I'm not going to talk through a mask.
I'm not going to talk through a mask. You poor guy. Oh my gosh. What a burden to talk through a mask. man, whew, I understand where you're coming from. It's not like millions of people have been doing this for 7 months so that we don't get each other sick and so that more people don't die. But I understand. That attitude is no surprise coming from someone working for a man who made a point of removing his mask while still infected with COVID and then returning to the White House. In Ohio today, Joe Biden said the president's approach to the virus is somehow only getting worse.
His reckless personal conduct since his diagnosis has been unconscionable. The longer Donald Trump is president, the more reckless he seems to get.
The behavior on display from this president and from his enablers in the Senate today is why we are now in the third wave of coronavirus. It is why we have one of the highest death tolls per capita of rich countries. It is why cases continue to spike. Look at that. You can see the line of the pink chart climbing. Nearly 50,000 new cases a day on average. Next to it, perhaps even more worrying, hospitalizations in the blue chart. And that's ticking up again. There are now 35,000 Americans in the hospital right now as I speak to you with this virus. That's trending up too. And we are still averaging 700 deaths daily. We are entering the third wave 3 weeks before the election. Those are the numbers. This is what it looks like around the country. The headlines: rolling average of infections hits new high in 13 states. Only 16 ICU beds left in entire state of North Dakota. North Dakota's new COVID-19 cases double the number of hospital beds available in the state. A Missouri health official warning of a very concerning rise of hospitalizations in just the St. Louis area, while a Kansas health official starkly stating that Kansas is losing the battle on COVID-19. The White House has already shrugged its shoulders at more than 200,000 Americans dead, 215,000 around that. It's now lying about Anthony Fauci's opinion about its response. Fauci had to scold the Trump campaign for using his comments out of context in a new ad to make it look like he was lauding Trump. Fauci is also warning that we could have 200,000 more deaths if we don't do the right thing. This is what he says, that models show unless necessary precautions are taken for this fall and winter, we could have 300,000 to 400,000 deaths in the U.S. Necessary precautions, those people rushing back into the room while they have COVID to take their mask off and talk. Those people that won't talk through the mask because it's such a burden. Do you trust these people, this White House, and that party to take those precautions? The stuff is a matter of life and death. There are tens of thousands of people right now who aren't sick, who are going to get sick and die if the right precautions aren't taken. They don't appear to care how many people die if they can get their Supreme Court justice through or somehow get this president reelected. It sounds almost deranged and hyperbolic to say it, but it is absolutely the plain and indisputable truth.
So let's talk about this, because obviously you've had a back and forth with the Supreme Court. In a 9-0 decision, the Supreme Court directed your administration to facilitate the return, you've talked about this in the past, of Kilmar Abrego Garcia from a prison in El Salvador, whose deportation your administration called an administrative error. You said in a recent interview you could bring him back, but you won't. Are you defying the Supreme Court, sir?
No, I'm relying on the Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi, who's very capable, doing a great job, because I'm not involved in the legality or the illegality. I have lawyers to do that, and that's why I have a great DOJ. We have a great one. We had a very corrupt one before. Now we have a great one. And they're not viewing the decision the way you said it. They don't view it that way at all. They think it's a totally different decision.
Well, you say you have the power to bring him back, though. Your Attorney General says, quote, that's up to El Salvador. Just to put a fine point on this, do you have the power to bring Abrego Garcia back as the Supreme Court?
Well, I have the power to ask for him to come back if I'm instructed by the Attorney General that it's legal to do so. But the decision as to whether or not he should come back will be the head of El Salvador. He's a very capable man.
Well, you know, and your Attorney General has said the issue is with that word facilitate. Will you seek clarification from the Supreme Court? Do you need to go back to the Supreme Court?
We may do that. I was asking about that. We may do that.
Your Secretary of State says everyone who's here, citizens and non-citizens, deserve due process. Do you agree, Mr. President?
I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know.
Well, the Fifth Amendment says
I don't know. It seems It might say that, but if you're talking about that, then we'd have to have 1 million or 2 million or 3 million trials. We have thousands of people that are some murderers and some drug dealers and some of the worst people on earth. Some of the worst, most dangerous people on earth. And I was elected to get them the hell out of here, and the courts are holding me from doing it.
But even given those numbers that you're talking about, don't you need to uphold the Constitution of the United States as president?
I don't know. I have to respond by saying again, I have brilliant lawyers that work for me, and they are going to obviously follow what the Supreme Court said. What you said is not what I heard the Supreme Court said. They have a different interpretation.
So good guys, why then do you and Hillary want to control and restrict and limit gun manufacturers, gun owners, and the responsible use of guns and ammunition to the rest of us, the good guys, instead of holding the bad guys accountable for their actions? And Mr. President, if I may, I'd like to use Chicago, your hometown, a city that has some of the strictest gun laws in the nation, a city that for decades and still is under Democratic control, a city that has an outrageous and even embarrassing murder rate as my first example. Why can't we round up these thugs, these drug dealers and gang members, and hold them accountable for their actions, or allow the good people in Chicago access to firearms to protect themselves?
Good. All right. Well, let me, it's a multi-part question, so let me just say a couple things. First of all, the notion that I or Hillary or Democrats or whoever you want to choose are hell-bent on taking away folks' guns is just not true. And I don't care how many times the NRA says it. I'm about to leave office. There have been more guns sold since I've been president than just about any time in U.S. history. There are enough guns for every man, woman, and child in this country. And at no point have I ever proposed confiscating guns from responsible gun owners. So it's just not true. What I have said is precisely what you suggested, which is, why don't we treat this like every other thing that we use? We used to have really bad auto fatality rates. The auto fatality rate has actually dropped precipitously, drastically, since I was a kid. Why is that? We decided we had seatbelt laws. We decided to have manufacturers put airbags in place. We decided to crack down on drunk driving and texting. We decided to redesign roads so that they were less likely to have a car bank. We studied what is causing these fatalities using science and data and evidence, and then we slowly treated it like the public health problem it was, and it got reduced. We are not allowed to do any of that when it comes to guns, because people, if you propose anything, it is suggested that we're trying to wipe away gun rights and impose tyranny and martial law. Do you know that Congress will not allow the Center for Disease Control to study gun violence? They're not allowed to study it because the notion is that by studying it the same way we do with traffic accidents, somehow that's going to lead to everybody's guns being confiscated. When we talked about background checks, if you buy a car, if you want to get a license, first of all, you got to get a license. You have to take a test. People have to know that you know how to drive. You don't have to do any of that with respect to buying a gun. And when we talked about doing effective background checks, it was resisted because the notion was we were going to take your guns away. I just came from a meeting today in the Situation Room in which I've got people who we know have been on ISIL websites, living here in the United States, U.S. citizens, and we're allowed to put them on the no-fly list when it comes to airlines. But because of the National Rifle Association, I cannot prohibit those people from buying a gun. This is somebody who is a known ISIL sympathizer, and if he wants to walk in to a gun store or a gun show right now and buy as many weapons as ammo as he can, nothing's prohibiting him from doing that, even though the FBI knows who that person is. So, sir, I just have to say respectfully that there is a way for us to have common sense gun laws. There is a way for us to make sure that lawful, responsible gun owners like yourself are able to use it for sporting, hunting, protecting yourself. But the only way we're going to do that is if we don't have a situation in which anything that is proposed is viewed as some tyrannical destruction of the Second Amendment. And that's how the issue too often gets framed.
The people, my people are so smart. And you know what else they say about my people? The polls. They say, I have the most loyal people. Did you ever see that? Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible.
We love Nevada. We love Nevada. Thank you. A couple of months ago, we weren't expected to win this one. You know that, right? We weren't. Of course, if you listen to the pundits, we weren't expected to win too much, and now we're winning the country. And soon the country is going to start winning. We won the evangelicals. We won with young. We won with old. We won with highly educated. We won with poorly educated. I love the poorly educated. We're the smartest people. We're the most loyal people. And you know what I really am happy about? Because I've been saying it for a long time. 46% with the Hispanics. 46%. #1 with Hispanics.
Joining us now is South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham. Senator, good to have you in the studio.
Thank you very much.
I want to read you a line from Donald Trump's inaugural address. He said that politicians have reaped the rewards of government while the people have borne the cost. He says the establishment protected itself and not the country. That seems like a shot at both Republicans and Democrats who were there to applaud his inauguration. Did you all take it that way?
Well, that's what got him elected president. Here's the way I see the country in January 2017. We're divided about how to move forward as a nation, but we're united that the institutions of government and the private sector no longer serve us well. I'm in the Congress. I get that most Americans believe the body I work in doesn't serve the nation well. A lot of people, from Bernie people to Trump people, believe the private sector is rigged against them. So here's my promise to this president and to the country. To the extent that I can restore trust by working with you into the institutions that most people think are failing, I will do it. I've been trying my best to work with Democrats to solve hard problems, but if you're in my business and your business and you don't get that most people in the country believe institutions don't serve them, we're all missing the point of Trump's election.
Absolutely, but there's a difference between the institutions don't serve them and the people. He said the politicians have been basically feathering their nests at the expense of the country. I mean, that's corruption, that's venality.
You want to look at my tax returns, you can. You want to look at my financial disclosures, you can. I think to realize Donald Trump's victory is you need to understand that we are united in one area, that the country's institutions are not serving the public well.
Let me ask you about another line from his speech. Donald Trump said, every country has the right to pursue their national interests. What do you think about that?
With caveats. Russia's national interest under Putin is to reconstruct the Russian Empire, to gobble up territories formerly under the Russian control. The Ayatollah's national interest is to radicalize the Shia populations in the Mideast and undermine Sunni Arab states. The leader of North Korea's national interest is to build an ICBM that can hit our homeland to make sure that his regime never falls by, holding us hostage. I think China's national interest is to take land owned by others by force. So to the president, Putin's national interests destabilize Europe. The Ayatollah's national interest will lead us into a war between the Sunnis and Shias like you've never seen. So there's a caveat to that. And to the president, If America First is a throwback to the 20s and 30s isolationism when it was first used as a phrase, the world will deteriorate even quicker. If it is a new way of Ronald Reagan, peace through strength, I'd like to work with you. I don't know what America First means.
He also talked about cutting foreign aid.
Yeah. Here's what I would tell him. Talk to General Mattis. General Mattis was
Defense.
Yes. He was a 4-star general, and here's what he said to an event I attended. If you cut the State Department's budget, then you need to buy me more bullets. This was a 4-star Marine Corps general. You want to destroy radical Islam, Mr. President, you will never do it by taking soft power off the table. You cannot kill enough terrorists, you cannot not drop enough bombs. Our goal as Americans is to provide security by partnering with people in the region, but building a small schoolhouse for a poor young girl in Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq will do more damage to radical Islam than any bomb you could drop. So please don't take soft power off the table.
Does Secretary of State Tillerson understand what the point you just made, and will you vote for him?
This is why I am voting for him. In my office visit, he said that when America doesn't lead, other people will, and the vacuum is always filled by bad actors. He said that we have to have a foreign policy that engages the world. We need to lead from the front. The foreign aid budget is 1% of the total federal spending. You could wipe it all out, not move the debt needle. Most of our foreign aid to a single country goes to Israel. I'm begging this president to understand that if we don't help others over there, we're always going to be endangered here. The Marshall Plan worked after World War II.
I called him Secretary of State Tillerson. Of course, he's not
I'm
yet.
voting
That's
for him.
why you're voting for him, and that's why that's news. Let me ask you about the Russia sanctions that you would like to impose. Where is that, and do you think it will get out of the Congress to the president?
I think there will vote tomorrow on additional sanctions against Russia. It would get over 75 votes in the Senate.
75 votes in the Senate, and that, of course, is to punish Russia for meddling in the election.
I think there's bipartisan belief that the Russians interfered in our election. I don't believe they changed the outcome, that Putin's trying to break the back of democracies all over the world. My hope is that his team, his national security team, which I like a lot, President Trump's team, will convince him that if you forgive Putin and forget about what he did, that screams weakness to Putin. Beware of the teddy bear, President Trump. Putin will change his tone, he'll be cajoling, but he still has the same interest at heart. If we don't punish Russia for what they did in our election, then Iran and China could come into the next election. People are watching us. Don't be weak when it comes to Russia. It didn't work on Obama's watch, and it won't work on your watch.
And your point is weakness not only sends a signal of weakness to Putin, but everyone else. How many Republican senators do you think will vote for the sanctions that Donald Trump does not want?
I hope most of them will, because I think all of them believe that Russia interfered in our elections. And the Baltic states, Georgia and the Ukraine, who live in the shadow of Russian expansionism and threats and domination, we need to send a signal to these countries that we're going to stand up to Russia. So this idea of forgiving existing sanctions is an invitation to more aggression by Russia.
Do you think he'll veto the bill that you're going to
This will be the biggest conflict potentially between the Congress and the president. Another conflict is going to be infrastructure. I am for more infrastructure spending, so is Bernie. But I'm a conservative Republican, it must be paid for. There'll be some Republicans that say it's not the role of the federal government to rebuild the inner cities. I'm willing to rebuild rural America and the inner cities. I just want it paid for. So President Trump's got to get his party in the game, and the way to do it is pay for any infrastructure increases.
And 10 seconds, defense spending too, a conflict there maybe.
I will build up the military because we're in danger, but I will not do it at the expense of the CIA, the FBI, and the State Department's budget. If you take soft power off the table, then you have two options left. Use military power exclusively or retreat. I cannot stress to you how important it is that we have more tools in the toolbox than just military power and retreat.
All right, Senator Graham, thanks so much for being with us, and we want...
This is the battle. Hitler was right on one thing. He said, whoever has the youth has the future. Our children are being propagandized. Today, I want to encourage you to do two things. Fill your children's minds with what is true and right and noble. And then they can overcome evil with good because they can actually discern between what is evil and what is good.
I confess I'm a little confused, and I appreciate the argument or discussion that we've been having, but for me it's a little too conceptual, or I don't know, metaphysical or theological or whatever you want to call it. I want to try to understand what you're asking us to do. Let's take two books that have been much discussed. The first one is called All Boys Aren't Blue, and I will quote from it. I put some lube on and got him on his knees, and I began to slide into him from behind. I pulled out of him and kissed him while he masturbated. He asked me to turn over while he slipped a condom on himself. This was my ass, and I was struggling to imagine someone inside me. He got on top and slowly inserted himself into me. It was the worst pain I think I have ever felt in my life. Eventually, I felt a mix of pleasure with the pain. Close quote. All Boys Aren't Blue. The second is another much discussed book. I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's called Genderqueer. Okay? Let me read an excerpt from that. Quote, I got a new strap-on harness today. I can't wait to put it on you. It will fit my favorite dildo perfectly. You're going to look so hot. I can't wait to have your cock in my mouth. I'm going to give you the blowjob of your life. Then I want you inside of me. End quote. Now, Mr. Secretary, what are you asking us to do? Are you suggesting that only librarians should decide whether the two books that I just referenced should be available to kids? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Okay. Tell me what you're saying.
Well, first of all, there's this...
Don't give me a speech. Tell me what you're asking me to do.
With all due respect, Senator, the words you spoke are disturbing, especially coming out of your mouth is very disturbing. But what I would also tell you that we're not advocating for kids to read porn, to Senator Booker's point.
What are you advocating for?
We are advocating for parents, random parents, not to have the ability, under the guise of keeping kids safe, to try and challenge the world view of every single manner on these issues.
You're getting conceptual game.
I'm not getting conceptual. I'm saying
yes, you are. Yes, you are. Because I want to know what you're recommending. It sounds to me like what some of you are saying, the librarians should decide who gets to see that book.
I'm saying when individual parents are allowed to make a decision of where that line is, and To Kill a Mockingbird, which involves a rape scene, should that book be pulled from our libraries? I think it becomes a slippery slope.
I think you ought to think about it a little bit more before you come here.
I've thought about it, Senator.
If you're going to propose something, you ought to be able, in 30 seconds, to be able to explain what you're asking us to do. Ms. Kelly, what do you understand? Well, let me skip you for a second. Mr. Cameron, tell me what you're proposing.
It's pronounced mix.
Mix? Is that how would you like me to refer to you?
Senator, your definition of sexual is synonymous with LGBTQ identity.
I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you to tell me you read those two excerpts.
Genderqueer.
Do you think that, are you asking that only librarians and not parents have any say in whether minors can read those books? Is that what you're saying?
Genderqueer has never been in my school library, so it's never been banned.
Well, suppose it was. Should it be up just to the librarian, or should parents have a say?
There should be facilitation of collaboration between students.
Should parents have
and
a say?
Parents should be working with students and educators to be making decisions, because students are...
And who decides ultimately? The librarian, or do you take a vote, or who takes the vote?
Book review committees in the community in my school district.
You want a committee to decide?
There are committees.
Okay. Well, I'm asking you, how do we decide whether the two books that I just referenced should be available in the library. What would you, if you were running things, what would you do?
All Boys Aren't Blue, the scene you mentioned, is about sexual abuse.
I know what it's about.
It's not
What
erotic.
would you do in terms of making the books available? Would you say anybody can see them, or they have to be in a special session?
Students who do not read books like All Boys Aren't Blue cannot learn what is appropriate.
I understand that.
They cannot learn.
I understand, but none
about
of you want to
abuse.
answer my question. You come here and you say censorship is bad, and of course it's bad. But the obvious response is, okay, you heard the books we're talking about. Okay, we're not talking about Catcher in the Rye. So tell me what you want, who gets to decide. And all I've heard is the librarians. And parents have nothing to do with it. And if that's your response, what planet did you just parachute in from?
Parents, Senator.
Or what country, more appropriately? This is not China.
Parents, Senator, for all due respect, parents absolutely have a say. My parents were immigrants, came to this country. We never checked out books without our parents seeing what books we were reading. They encouraged us to read
Mr.
books.
Secretary, I understand this is good for your politics back home.
It's got nothing to do with my politics. My bill
of
is
course
passed.
It does.
My bill is
has
passed.
everything to do with your politics.
I'm here to.
But you came here with a problem, and I'm trying to understand the solution, and you don't have one.
We solved the solution.
Other than to tell us that we don't agree with you, you're on the wrong. We'll be on the wrong side of history.
We solved the problem in Illinois. We fixed it because we.
Well, there are others you could work on.
Well, that's why I'm
out
here
of
to help.
time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
To help out.
The government is asking for $10 million in bail for Manafort and $5 million for Richard Gates. Both are under house arrest tonight. Manafort's lawyer, Kevin Downing, came storming out of the courtroom this afternoon, questioning the validity of the charges.
Well, I think you all saw today that President Donald Trump was correct. There is no evidence that Mr. Manafort or the Trump campaign colluded with the Russian government. Today, you see an indictment brought by an Office of Special Counsel that is using a very novel theory to prosecute Mr. Manafort regarding a FARA filing. The United States government has only used that offense 6 times since 1966 and only resulted in 1 conviction.
For more on all of this, we turn tonight to Mike Papantonio, host of America's Lawyer here on RT America, and also Mark O'Mara, criminal defense attorney. Gentlemen, great to have you with us tonight. Mr. O'Mara, I want to start with you. I want your reaction to the counsel that you just heard for Mr. Manafort. What do you make of what he said?
I think he needs to be extraordinarily careful. I think the idea of coming out with any type of a strong statement this early on in an investigation when he cannot know everything that the prosecution knows is very dangerous. It sounds great, it sounds somewhat arrogant, it sounds like you're defending your client. This is not the time, and the media is not necessarily the place to do it. They need to understand that this is just the beginning. Mueller knows exactly what he's doing. He does it calmly, he does it methodically, and this may or may not be Manafort's only indictment, and they need to be careful.
Gentlemen, tonight, it seems the big question is George Papadopoulos. How much of a treasure trove would he be to the Mueller investigation? Just how much does he know, and how much work and how much good can he do for the investigation? Mike, your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's going to be very important. Understand, this is a guy that they were on to in July, and we're just hearing about it in October. So this is the kind of character, understand, this is the kind of character they wire. And all of a sudden he's caught, they put a wire on him, he starts talking to friends, you remember this, remember that. Before you know it, you've got people involved in this that he's been talking to with a wire. It's I think the biggest problem for the Trump campaign. I don't think the Manafort issue is the problem here. It's Papadopoulos. He's 7 years out of school. Okay, he's trying to make his way into the political field. He's trying to be Mr. Important. He says, "I can set you up with Russia." And this thing that goes back and forth. These words that go back and forth. You want to go to Russia? You not want to go to? It all leads to a problem. It tells me this guy has been working for the feds for quite a while.
Mark, what are investigators going to do with this guilty plea?
Well, everything they can, because understand, when Papadopoulos comes in and says, I will plead guilty, that comes with it the I will do everything I can to help you, prosecution, in order to help myself. Realize that a prosecution, particularly a conspiracy prosecution is like a fishnet. They throw out a very wide fishnet, but they need knots between all of those little lines. And if Papadopoulos can go in there and tie together some of those knots, put it together, it makes it a much tighter fishnet where fewer people can fall through. And Papadopoulos is going to buy himself a probation offer potentially, or much less than he would get if he wasn't cooperating, by doing everything he can to help the government. And those type of flipped witnesses are gold to an investigation. And again, he's not going to be the only one.
You know, you listen to the White House, there's no collusion. The president is just as strong about that today as he was 6 months ago or 8 months ago. What kind of legal jeopardy could he be in if, you know, Papadopoulos continues to roll in this investigation? What about that, Mark? Your thoughts as a defense attorney?
Not only Papadopoulos, but the next few. This is simply not Mueller's only witness. This is one where they came upon the information, they decided to go forward against Manafort. They're probably going to at least offer him to flip, as well as Gates, and they're building up their case. The way a prosecution builds their case is brick by brick by brick.
Yeah.
That goes from evidence, that goes from wiretaps, that goes from search warrants, and most importantly, it goes from witnesses. So just as I said that Manafort's lawyer needs to be more circumspect, I think the president needs to be more circumspect, because this is not done. This is just getting started, and many of the words that are being said right now may well have to be eaten in just a few months.
Mike, the political talk here in Washington is talking about bricks being thrown. One came through the window last week. It was Fusion GPS. And the DNC and Clinton money paying for this dossier that dug up dirt, some of it fake news, some coordinated with intelligence being true, but it was still paid for. It's politically tainted. Then just days after that, these indictments show up. What do you make of that?
Well, I think, here's one thing I make of it. I mean, obviously, you know, if somebody's trying to cover up the fusion issue or the Iranian issue, this is the time to do that. But I see it a different way. I see this as a roadmap. What Mueller's doing here is he's creating a roadmap, the same kind of roadmap that can be used in the Fusion GPS case, it can be used in the uranium case. So as you read these indictments, fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
Put Podesta's name next to Papadopoulos.
Yeah.
Put some of these other characters, just fill in those names, and you see he's got a really good blueprint for using against the Democrats. And the Democrats, they're ones that started this entire thing. All of a sudden, they can be gobbled up in it just as easily.
Mike Papantonio, Mark O'Mara, gentlemen, great to have you with us tonight. Appreciate your insight on all of this.
Do you respect Putin?
I do respect him.
Do you? Why?
Well, I respect a lot of people, but that doesn't mean I'm going to get along with him. He's a leader of his country. I say it's better to get along with Russia than not. And if Russia helps us in the fight against ISIS, which is a major fight, and Islamic terrorism all over the world, major fight, that's a good thing. Will I get along with him? I have no idea. It's very possible I won't.
Putin's a killer.
A lot of killers. We got a lot of killers. Why, you think our country's so innocent?
I want to say thank you for making it happen. Thank you. My heart goes out to you. It is thanks to you that the future of civilization is assured.
Good evening. I've got the hardest job tonight. I have to follow Hulk Hogan. But I stand here tonight as a private citizen who loves this country. I've been asked to say a few words and then to pray, and we're going to do that. Last Saturday in Butler, Pennsylvania, President Trump had a near-death experience, no question. But God spared his life. And when we go through those experiences, it changes us. It can cause us to examine our lives and to reevaluate our priorities, as you should. When President Trump rose from that platform, he rose with his fist raised in strength showing America his unshakable resolve to fight for them in this nation. I cannot explain why God would save one life and allow another one to be taken. I don't have the answer for that. But one thing I do know is that God loves us, and he wants us to be with him in heaven one day. And that's through faith in his Son, Jesus Christ. You see, the Bible says that God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him shouldn't perish but should have everlasting life. For as long as I've known President Trump, I've found him to be a man of his word. Things that he said he'll do, he did. When he told me and our country in 2016 that he was going to appoint conservative justices, guess what? He did. In 2016, he said he would defend religious liberty, and guess what? He did. In 2019, I was with him at the United Nations when the first president of history of this country stood there to advocate for religious liberty worldwide. When American citizen and Pastor Andrew Brunson was being held in a Turkish jail on false accusations, President Trump demanded that he be released. And he applied economic pressure and sanctions until he did that. I'm grateful and thankful for what he did as a 45th president of the United States. And I know that as the 47th president, he will keep his word to the American people to make America great once again. It's an honor for me to be asked to pray for Donald Trump this evening. And so what I'd like to do, I'd like us to pray, but I'd like us all to stand as we call upon the name of the God of heaven. Our Heavenly Father, we come before you this evening with grateful hearts. Thank you for saving the life of President Donald J. Trump. In his own words, it was you and you alone who saved him. We pray for the others that were injured on Saturday, for the family who lost their loved one. Put your loving arms around them. Comfort them, and may they sense your presence. We stand before you tonight. We say thank you for the provisions you have given to the United States of America. You have blessed this country more than any country in the world. Sadly, as a nation, we have forgotten who is responsible for all the freedoms, the liberties, and the bounty that we enjoy. It has all come for you. Thank you. This evening, our nation is in trouble. We're divided politically, racially, economically, with millions of people seeking refuge and hope in our dry and thirsty land. You're the only one who can fix the complexity of the problems that we face today. We pray for President Trump that you would give him wisdom, strength, and a clear vision for the future of this nation and the task that is at hand. Continue to protect him from his enemies. I pray that you would surround him with men and women who will give him sound counsel and guidance. We pray for Melania, for Barron, and for all the President Trump's children and grandchildren. We pray for Senator J.D. Vance, his wife Usa, along with their young family. We're thankful for his strong stand for defending life. As your word instructs, we also pray for the leaders of our nation, whether they're Republican, Democrat, or Independent. We know that all authority comes from you. You are a great God, and we ask that if it be thy will that you will make America great once again. And we ask that you'll unite our hearts, bring us together, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we pray this in the mighty name of my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Amen.
Mr. President, come up here. You'll probably have to take this thing away from me, but I have a man on the board of directors of our ministry. His name is Jim Tomlin. This man, great professional football player back in the day. He has drilled and is still drilling some of the deepest gas wells in the world. He was on Flashpoint with Gene Bailey.
Right. That's right.
And Gene asked him, how much untapped natural gas energy do we have in the United States? Without question, he said, we have enough natural gas.
How are you, sir? We'd just like to ask you about why you don't want to fly commercial. Why have you said that you won't fly commercial? You said that it's like getting into a tube with a bunch of demons. Why do you think that?
No, listen to me just a second. Not the people. The main reason is because of the need. If I flew commercial, I'd have to stop 65% of what I'm doing. That's really the main.
Isn't it true that you want to fly commercial so that you can fly in luxury? How much money did you pay for Tyler Perry's Gulfstream jet, for example?
Well, for example, that's really none of your business, but...
Isn't it the business of your donors?
Listen, I paid. You kind of caught me off guard here, okay?
Certainly. Well, if you'd like to come out here, I'd like to give you a chance to catch your breath and have a conversation. We don't want to catch you off guard.
I love Inside Edition. You got to get this now. Hey, you listening to me? My wife thinks Inside Edition is, oh yeah. Now, thank you, Lord. Help me. Let me pray.
Well, let me just ask you a really simple question. A lot of people think it's unbecoming for a preacher to live a life of luxury and to fly around in private jets. What's your response to that?
Very simple. It takes a lot of money to do what we do. We have brought over 100, let's see, the latest figures just came out, 122 million people to the Lord Jesus Christ. Let me give you another example. Last May, I was scheduled for Lagos, Nigeria. That's a long ways. I had a week off, and I was scheduled for Peru. And I prayed about it, and I thought, I'm not missing that dedication in Jerusalem. Without the airplane that we have that I bought from Tyler Perry, and I didn't pay anywhere. Tyler's one of the greatest guys. He made that airplane so cheap for me, I couldn't help but buy it.
Well, my question then, okay, all right, but I want to get to the demons because people are very concerned about that comment.
Give me a chance here, Inside Edition. Okay. I love your eyes. And here's what happened. We flew in 21 days, 70 hours, 40,000 miles, touched 5 continents, and preached face to face personally with 125,000 people.
Do you ever use your private jets to go visit your vacation homes, for example?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Again, getting back to the comment, you said that you don't like to fly commercial because you don't want to get into a tube with a bunch of demons. Do you really believe that human beings are demons?
No, I do not. And don't you ever say I did. We wrestle not with flesh and blood, but principalities and powers.
Can you explain what you meant by that term then? Just explain, because it's really simple. You said you didn't want to get into a tube with a bunch of demons. What did you mean?
Well, let me ask you.
Do you think that people that fly commercial are demons?
If you give me a chance to talk, sweetheart, I'll explain this to you. But it's a biblical thing. It's a spiritual thing. It doesn't have anything to do with people. People, I love people. Jesus loves people. But people get pushed in alcohol. Do you think that's a good place for a preacher to be and prepare to go preach to a lot of people? When somebody in there is dragging some woman down an aisle, it made me so mad to see that on television. I wanted to punch the guy out myself. I can't be doing that while I'm getting ready to preach.
So you just don't like to be around the sinful people or the hurtful people. Is that what you're saying?
Not the people, baby. Not the people. Back during the days that we couldn't do anything else, we had to travel commercial. When I went to Oral Roberts University, I flew for Oral Roberts. I'm a commercial pilot. So I spent a lot of time in airports.
You have how many planes?
We have the Gulfstream, and we still have our Citation team. And then we have a little small airplane. But both those are the two ones that we use, and we use them all the time. And other people use them too. We have other ministries that use these. In the book of Ephesians, oh God, I love this. We wrestle not with people, but with principalities and powers, unseen things, rulers of the darkness of this world. Talking about the devil, he's a very real devil, just the same as Jesus is a very real Lord. And I spent a lot of time on airlines. But the main thing that happened was that wasn't the main reason. The main reason was I could no longer do what I called to do and be on the airlines. Besides that, I need my clothes when I get there.
And you have some fancy clothes. I mean, for a pastor, you are living a life of luxury. You've got great homes, you've got great planes, you drive in limos.
I'm a very wealthy man.
You're a very wealthy man.
Yes.
Yeah. And some people would say that is it appreciated?
May I add something to that? My wealth doesn't come from offerings alone.
Because you sell things, books and DVDs.
Yes. And I have a lot of natural gas on our property. Didn't know that, did you, babe?
Now I do.
Yeah, you do. Isn't that wonderful?
Well, I guess. It's wonderful for you.
Back when, and I might add another thing too, we invest from, let's see, I don't know the exact number on last year yet, but it will run something in the neighborhood of 25 million in the poor. Can't do that and be broke.
So final question is, a lot of people maybe have a misunderstanding then about what you do in prosperity preaching. So the final question is this. To those critics that say that a preacher should not be living a life of luxury, what is your response to that?
They're wrong.
That's it?
That it's a misunderstanding of the Bible that if you go into the Old Covenant, do you think the Jewish people believe you should be broke?
Are you saying that Jewish people appreciate money more than... Really?
They believe in wealth.
Some people would find that offensive.
No, wait a minute now. I'm not talking about some people. I'm talking about the Bible. The blessing of Abraham. Abraham was extremely wealthy, and he had a covenant with God. It's not the Jewish blessing, it's the Abrahamic blessing. God, I get excited talking about it because I love it. And I started out deep in debt with nothing, which is another story. But anyway.
So You say that it's biblical and that there's a foundation in the Bible for this.
Let me close it with this. I had to learn this, like I said, from the Bible and from my spiritual mentor, Oral Roberts. And I learned it from him, working with him, and then he was close friends until he died. And he took the same heat for believing God would prosper you that I've taken over the years. And Abraham was a very, very wealthy man. Galatians chapter 3. If you belong to Christ, then are you Abraham's seed and heirs according to his promise. And his promise was great wealth.
The Bible also says that it's more difficult for a rich man to get into heaven than it is for a camel to get through the eye of a needle, correct?
The rest of the scripture. But he said, all things are possible with God. And he said, if you study the Greek behind that, it's trusting in wealth. When he said that, his disciples said, they were astonished out of measure because they were wealthy men. They were astonished out of measure, saying, how can anyone be saved? He said, all things are possible.
Both of my grandfathers were preachers. They were both very poor. They lived simple, modest lives. They were extremely offended by men that made money like you do, preaching like you do. What would your response be to people that think that preachers shouldn't live this kind of a lifestyle? Folks like both my grandfathers.
And I understand that. And I love them with all my heart. It's your grandfathers that we're standing on their shoulders. They held up and they stood for it. Glory to God. But when you go back to the Bible, it's full of wealth. And it's full of miracles and signs and wonders. And it's full of goodness. And it's full of meanness. It's just full of hell on earth. Those are the demons, not the people. I love the people.
Again, getting back to the... Sir, thank you so much for your time
What's your
today.
name?
Lisa Guerrero.
Lisa, God bless. Father, bless Lisa today. Thank you for her grandparents. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to know her and to her team. And I pray and I believe her piece will be successful. I love Inside Edition. I love the people on it. And it thrills me to get a chance to have my face on Inside Edition.
Thank you very much,
you,
Reverend.
girl.
You have a nice day.
Yes.